What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Unhinged Talk. As usual, I'm your host, Patrick Hennessy, joined tonight by the man, the myth, the legend, Jay Lonzo. How are we doing, Jalen?
Doing great. I feel like it's been a while. I'm glad to be back.
It has. It has.
It feels good to be back in the chat room.
Yeah. Listen, we got a few Yankees topics that have happened since the last time we brought you on. I think have you been on since Kluber signed?
No, I haven't been on since Kluber. I haven't talked about Taillon.
Taillon, whatever.
We talked about DJ resigning, and
Yeah.
maybe I think that was the last little bit of stuff that I covered.
Yeah. So listen, I think what I kind of want to advance to now is like we know the Yankees made these moves, right? We know they acquired Kluber, Taillon, however you say it, Darren O'Day, re-signed DJ. But now I think a lot of people are wondering what the Yankees do next, right? I mean, I think a lot of people are even concerned like they might be done, and I think it's possible that they might be done. But there's one man that I want to focus on today that I think could be a target for the Yankees, depending on his asking price from the Reds, if the Reds are even interested in trading him, and that's Amir Garrett. Now, let me start off by saying I think Amir Garrett would be a beautiful fit for the New York Yankees. I think everything about him would be perfect. His pitching style, his emotion, everything about Amir Garrett, I love. And I think he would be a perfect fit in the bullpen. My only thing is like I wish he was a right-hander because we have Britton left-handed, we have Chapman left-handed. I wish he could be a righty. But what do you think about Amir Garrett in the Bronx?
I've been a big fan of Garrett. I knew about him mainly because we were rumored to be interested in him. I think it was 2017. We were talking about adding relievers. Betances was either hurt or struggling. I don't remember which one it was, but Garrett was a name that popped up, and I didn't know anything about him. And so I did a little bit of research on him. He throws hard. He has a nasty slider. He's tall. Stereotypical Yankee guy.
Yeah.
And we didn't end up getting a deal for him, but I think he'd be perfect in this bullpen. I know that we have a big two lefties at the end, but Chapman's a guy that can get out righties and lefties. Britton's the same. Like they're not lefty specialists, they're set up man and closer. So I wouldn't be too opposed to adding another lefty. It would be kind of similar to like how I felt about Josh Hader. A great reliever is a great reliever. It helps that he can get out big lefties, but if they can get out both, it's a plus. And his stuff plays both ways. He's cheap. I think he makes less than $1 million. So
around that, yeah.
Yeah, so he'd probably take a little bit more just because he's controllable and doesn't make a lot of money. The Reds are going to want a big package. So, but at the end of the day, he is a reliever, and he has been inconsistent throughout his career. So I don't think it's crazy to think that we could put together a package for him. And he fits with the whole luxury tax debacle that we're going through right now.
Yeah, I think the salary would be the huge thing about Garrett because looking at a guy like Josh Hader, I think he makes quite a bit more than Garrett. I could be mistaken.
Hader he makes more, but his contract is still like you're still able to what's the word? Absorb it.
Yeah.
It's a crazy amount, but that's another thing. Like Hader, because he's so cheap, the Brewers are going to ask the moon for him. Which I don't understood. I think the Yankees, it was kind of a double-edged sword that we got Gleyber Torres for Aroldis Chapman because obviously we love Gleyber and we love the fact that we got Chapman back and all that. And the Andrew Miller deal also, it kind of set this precedent for trading relievers where teams think that they can get the moon for these relievers, and that's just not traditionally been the case.
Yeah.
So I don't
about 5 years ago, probably, but I think the reliever market, I think teams are beginning to realize that great bullpens don't just win you championships. Like everyone after the Royals did it, everyone was like, "Oh shit! We got to get all the top relievers." That's why their price went up like crazy. And now I think as time has gone on, it's changed.
No, 100%. I think the Yankees are one of those teams that jumped on that trend of we're gonna build the three-headed monster. They had Miller, they had Chapman, and
Betances, and even Justin Wilson.
Right, and then we brought in, and then Chad Green was a big part of that. And then once we lost Betances and Miller, then we brought in Britton, and Britton was a huge part, and still is a huge part of our bullpen. But I think we've realized, Britton even said it after I think it was a 2018 ALCS, you can't just keep running out the same guys, over and over again. You have to build a good rotation. You have to have other pieces of your staff rather than just guys that throw 100 coming out of the bullpen because they're not going to pitch every day.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, going back to Garrett though, I think like we know stuff wise, like the dude's filthy. He's been filthy for years. I think the Reds originally had him as like a starter and he didn't really work out, but ever since moving to the bullpen, he's been an absolute stud. But like personality wise, I think Amir Garrett in the Bronx would flourish. I don't know if you're going to see this comp, but emotion, like raw emotion, I see CC Sabathia
Yeah. No, I
like
see that.
easily.
I also think that's a great point because I think the Yankees we noticed it this year. Like, sure, they have great chemistry. They all love each other. That's great. But besides Luke Voigt, maybe we didn't really see that passion that we
Yeah.
should see. And I think a big part of that, of course, was the fans not being there. It's hard to kind of go after it every single day when you're playing in front of nobody. Like even in high school, you play in front of at least a small crowd. So I'm sure that weighed in. But I think Tommy Kahnle being out was a huge part of it as well. I think people really underestimated his
Huge,
clubhouse
huge.
of just firing guys up all the time. We have a team full of really quiet guys, and Garrett Cole is another one who I would say brought the fire and
Yeah.
the passion, but really only on days that he pitched. Which you're not going to expect him to do more than that.
Well,
But
don't forget. I mean, J Hap, he brought the fire too. I mean,
yeah,
every day, every day.
in a very negative way. I'm so glad he's gone. But no, I think guys like Kahnle who can sit in the dugout until they're told up to go warm up in the bullpen, they can be loud and get guys going. And I'm sure he was in the dugout sometimes, but a lot of time he was rehabbing, and that dugout was just really quiet. Like
Yeah,
guys were not. I'm sure they were into it. Just didn't seem the same. And obviously, having a guy like CC not there anymore was a big part in that. And I think replacing CC is impossible. Just the veteran presence that he brings and how much he knows about the game. But I think the passion and the fire that Kahnle brought was a big part of that. And that's another
yeah,
one of the reasons why I wanted a guy like Archie Bradley. I thought he was the perfect
yeah.
transition from Kahnle. That like they're the same type of pitcher. Throws 99, nasty sinker, nasty slider. It would have been a great addition to the bullpen and a righty. But I think Amir Garrett, him being a little bit cheaper, I guess, if we're splitting pennies, like
Yeah.
then Amir Garrett would be perfect from the left side.
Yeah, I think Garrett would obviously be a perfect option, but I think what we should kind of talk about now is what actually matters, and that would be like the package the Yankees would have to give up to get him.
Yeah.
I guess I'll give the potential package I think that it would take first. And call me crazy, but I think you would have to give up one of Devi or Schmidt. I think you'd have to give up one of those guys, and then maybe like uh give me like a random, maybe like a Dairo Estrada.
hmm
And I think that might get the deal done.
Yeah. No, I like that. I think I agree with you on the principle of like including one, I guess you could say major piece, major asset, and then a smaller one that is very expendable for us.
Yeah.
I think the Reds are like super in the market for a shortstop. So I think a guy like Tyler Wade would be really enticing to them. Um,
Interesting.
I think I would love to get rid of Tyler. I mean, listen, he's fast. He proved it. I think he proved a lot of us wrong last year. Not hitting wise, but just the fact that he was able to run the bases.
No, yeah.
He's a great defender, and he's a natural shortstop. So I think he'd be better than I think they just acquired Kyle Holder, who's also in
They did, yeah.
our organization. But if we could give them like a Tyler Wade and call me crazy, but I'd throw Miggy in there also. I'm just super
Oh,
low.
yeah.
I'm super low on Miggy, so I think he could.
I would too. Bro, I wish the National League still had the DH because
Yeah,
then he would actually make sense for them.
we would have so many more options on where to move him. But I think starting with Tyler Wade and then maybe giving them a decent pitching prospect, maybe even like an Albert Abreu, a fringe 40 guy who we have to clear space on the 40 man for. Just giving them a guy like that, I'm fine with that because truthfully, like guys like Albert Abreu, I don't want to say Luis Gil because I think he's gonna find a spot on the Yankees rotation at some point.
Yeah.
People are really high on him, but it's like Albert Abreu is a guy I don't see him ever really having a role with the Yankees. The same way I felt about Miguel however the fuck.
You hurry. You hurry.
I'm
Yeah.
so glad that they got rid of him for a piece that can really be a big part of our rotation because guys like that are not going to be part of the bullpen going forward. They're like the spot star guys in September, maybe late August when we have injuries. So those guys are really
Yeah.
replaceable. I mean, if you can get a guy like Amir Garrett for Albert Abreu, and maybe he turns around and he's 27 and he's a good reliever with the Reds, but then you get Amir Garrett. So
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'd have to agree. I think the only thing that would be holding the Yankees back at this point is whether or not the Reds are still planning to sell off, right? Because we know Trevor Bauer's gone, and this whole offseason, we've heard rumors of a complete sell-off from the Reds, right? And I'm still waiting for that Sonny Gray bomb, still waiting for the Luis Castillo bomb. So I think it all depends on those guys. If we see a trade for like Sonny Gray or Luis Castillo, I think Amir Garrett is all but gone because then at that point, what's even the need for him, right? So I think it all depends on what the Reds want to do. It all depends on what the Yankees are planning on offering. But listen, at this point, I would put the realistic possibility of this on a scale of 1 to 10. At this point, I might put it at like a 4 or 5. Obviously, like I said, if one of those guys get dealt, I think then we could probably raise it higher to like a 6 or a 7. But right now, we're at like a 4 or 5.
yeah, and I also think the fact that the Reds didn't get the shortstop that they wanted. They didn't acquire Lindor. They didn't get Didi. They didn't get Simmons. They didn't get Simeon. I think all of that considered, I think that lowered their chances of competing this year, and they know that. And I think we have to wait and see where Bauer ends up because although I think the chances of them getting Bauer back are really small and slim, I don't want to count them out. So I guess we'll see where Bauer lands, and if Bauer is not in Cincy, which we expect, I think they'll start really reevaluating their options. And I wouldn't be surprised if they did a spring training sell-off.
Yeah.
We've seen it before, and I think once they realize, okay, this is really what we have to roll with for this year, they don't mind selling a little late in the offseason.
Yeah, I mean, we're just gonna have to wait and see what happens with that. But regardless, I think at this point the Yankees have had a fairly successful offseason. Obviously, there's some things that could still be left to do, but I think that's gonna wrap things up for us today. Appreciate everyone for watching. Be sure to stay tuned for Unhinged Talk, Unhinged Live. We go live just about every night, 9 p.m. Eastern time. So stick around for that. Like, comment, subscribe. You guys know the deal. Appreciate you all. Have a good night.